Hi everyone. Venus retrograde is about to square Jupiter for the second time. This is happening also while Jupiter is at the degree where it will soon station retrograde. So Venus is the ruler of Jupiter in Taurus. Venus rules Taurus. And this Jupiter in Taurus is itself soon to be retrograde. So combined, this is a very retrograde kind of vibe. Jupiter's been in Taurus for several months. Jupiter zoomed through Aries, entered Taurus, and this is the first time we're experiencing retrograde movement within the Taurus domain of Jupiter. So there are several factors that we really want to bring together here. Let me start with this reflection, focusing first on just Jupiter retrograde in general. When Jupiter moves retrograde in any sign, it's always going to highlight the difference between what we actually know, what's self-evident, what we know actually in our own direct experience, versus what we're trying to know, what we believe, what we're trying to convince ourselves or others. That which we know will never have any context to it. We can't explain it or justify or prove why we know it. It's just known because what is known is self-evident in the present moment. It never requires or needs anything other than that. On the other hand, that which we don't know and we're trying to know or believe or convince ourselves of requires a lot of convincing. Any belief structure requires a lot of context, a lot of proof, a lot of justification. So Jupiter stationing retrograde in Taurus really wants to bring forth a greater simplification. And we can apply that into a few areas, right? The thing I love doing most versus the good sounding ideas that I think I should do that might make more money or bring more opportunities, right? There's a world of a difference between the two. One is really alive and meaningful, but the other sounds like a good idea and really derives from this fear that I won't have enough if I don't go there. That which we love, that which is self-evident, that which really brings joy, maybe isn't flashy. Maybe it's so simple that we don't think it's enough, that we don't think we are enough. Also with the things that we have, we think we might need something better, bigger, more. Jupiter retrograde in Taurus invites us to consider that the quality and the value of our life is expressed and enhanced in loving the little that we have, loving it, enjoying it, appreciating it. And in fact, it often will emphasize, for a time, a sense of loss. And the loss really just might highlight what we don't really love or what we don't really need, but maybe thought we needed. So the stagnation of having a lot of what we don't love, oftentimes in its loss, in the letting go of a lot of things that aren't really relevant, it might feel like we're losing something, but it's really bringing a more essentialized relationship to living wholly and purely and more freely and joyfully in this present moment. So all of these things, Jupiter retrograde in Taurus really emphasizes. Now we're bringing a very relational component into this. Venus retrograde in Leo is, of course, very relational, but also really speaks strongly to our sense of direction, purpose, self-value, self-esteem, self-entitlement to live and to love and to enjoy our lives. So here's what I see happening with Venus retrograde in Leo squaring Jupiter as Jupiter is beginning to move retrograde. It tells me that it's very important at this time that we do not sacrifice our dignity and self-value and self-respect for the sake of any ideal or relationship or value or hope or expectation, personally or relationally, that we think we need. But rather we recognize that truth is intimacy. Truth is intimacy. Show me what's true. How do you feel now? What do you know now? What is true? Where can we agree? What do you want? All of these hopes, wishes, expectations of where we want one another to be, where we wished we were in our personal life and our relationships, have nothing to do with the truth of right now. And when we listen to ourselves, when we listen to one another, sometimes it feels like we're walking away from the good sounding ideal of what we wish would be and hoped would be and believed Jupiter should be. and where we've associated our own self-value, Venus, Taurus, with these constructs of where we thought we should be. It might feel like we're not where we want to be on this journey of life. And this can really impact our sense of self-value. Again, professionally, monetarily, life's passion, life's purpose, romantically, sexually, relationally. All of these things may feel like they're falling short. And yet, if we can just stop for a moment in trying to convince ourselves that things are supposed to be something else than what they are, trying to replicate and create conditions that aren't happening, then we can really live honestly and authentically with what is right now and with whom we are with right now and what is. Honesty and sincerity, it's a simple thing, but interestingly, it's hard. I think being an honest person is harder than we all realize because we have all these ideas and these preferences and wishes for what would be or should be and who we want to be and how we want to feel that keeps us in the way. The fear of our own disappointment or of other people's disappointment, of the consequences of being honest. So give me your truth. Give me what's real, what's evident. Offer this to ourselves and to one another. I would rather live in the unadorned, maybe at moments disappointing, stark realness of what is, and to get to know you, to get to know myself, to get to know this moment, and see everyone and everything as a fresh, unfolding discovery. I enter this conversation without a precondition, a preconception. I want to discover. You put all the cards on the table. It might be a royal flush. It might just be 2 3s. And if you play poker, 2 3s are not much. But that's what's happening. That's what's happening. We think that what's happening is a problem. And yet, whatever is right now is just a discovery of what's true. And we don't need to build a philosophy around it. We don't need to have a lot of answers around it. It's better not to have all of the answers, but to actually be on this journey, Jupiter, of discovery, and to deeply honor and respect the deep agency and sovereign being of ourselves and of one another, Leo, Venus, Taurus. That's so much better than pretending this is what the journey is about and this is how it's going to go. As per Jupiter, oftentimes there's a letting go to receive. What's the letting go that always happens with Jupiter? To letting go of our beliefs. This letting go of our beliefs is also oftentimes expressed in the letting go of the things, people, place, circumstances, constructs, forms that we were holding onto, but we're just taking up a lot of space. Again, it often feels unglamorous and disappointing to where we wanted things to be. But the intimacy of truth and honesty will always open up the doors in the next moment to where the path actually is. We won't learn otherwise. We will never allow ourselves to learn and grow in life for not willing to be fully honest and sincere and humble about what is. I want to share this experience I had recently. I had this crystal friend, or maybe never had it. This was like my best friend. One of those relationships that's sort of inexpressible. It was, I think, 2008 or 2009 where this crystal was gifted to me in a gifting ceremony. And it was a quartz crystal about this big, heavy, thick, but small, right? From Peru. And the person that gave it to me said, rub this crystal and it'll give you clarity whenever you need support. And it did. I would rub it and I would always get this calming clarity. For several years in the beginning of my relationship with this crystal, I would sleep with it on my third eye, on my heart. I would have illuminated, light-filled experiences. This was my best friend. This crystal traveled with me everywhere. I always slept with it. And progressively over the years, we kind of grew apart. And there was a point where maybe 5-6 years ago where I really noticed I'm not sleeping with it much. It felt irrelevant, not as alive and real for me, but there was so much sentiment in it. it meant so much to me. So much of my identity was in that crystal. I would say it's been well over half a decade where I've still had this crystal, at times not really knowing where I put it, maybe not touching it for months at a time, but not really wanting to let go of it. Had this one dream where I passed it on to a boy, and I sort of took it as this message of, it's time to let go. This crystal has served this purpose, but it's not for me to hold on to it. But I had too much sentimental value put on it. A lot of attachment, a lot of value placed on this relationship. Progressively over the years, I've released every crystal I own. I used to own a lot of crystals, and for a time in my life, crystals were very powerful and helpful. Some of them were very angelic and profound for me, but all of my crystals sort of became irrelevant over time. Just how it was for me, like everything serves a purpose for a time, in time. But this one crystal, I couldn't let go. Too much. It's too close to my heart. So recently, on our travels a couple weeks ago, my family and I were traveling to up the West Coast, went to Mount Shasta, and I pretty regularly would cleanse this crystal, whatever that means, honestly. Put the crystal in water, give it some time to be in the water, and then I would pick it up and take it back to my van and not look at it for several months. So I put it in the water to cleanse, took some time to find my own little spot and dunk in the water and do a cold plunge and pray, which I will almost always do when I go to Mount Shasta. Went back to the spot where I put the crystal in the water and it was gone. And that's never happened, but it was completely gone. I looked around, I asked people, have you seen this crystal? No one knew. I asked Michelle to look, she often finds lost objects, not there. And I came to terms with it. This crystal is gone for me. Someone else took it, probably. Or just flashed out of this dimensional reality, who knows. And there was a moment of real grief and sadness and regret and, grief. Like losing an old friend. But it was easy for me, and I'm pretty surprised by how peaceful I am. It was pretty easy for me to come into acceptance. I know this was meant to be. I probably would have delayed consciously letting go of this for a while. So there's a part of me that really bows to the letting go of it. And surprisingly, and this is sort of the punchline of the story, in the loss of this crystal, it really just shows me what I don't need. I don't need it. It's okay. The gift of this crystal was in the moments in my life when this was really relevant and right for me. All other value is just an association of the past, and it's in my mind. It's not actually lived. To grasp that is incredibly freeing, because we will hold on to one another and associate special meaning with forms of relationship, with particular ways of being and relating, and will fail to recognize what is now. The value of our life and of what is not found in trying to ascribe special meaning to things. That actually keeps us from the truth. So much of this sentimental content, and maybe we can all relate to this, and it just takes some self-honesty to really look at it for what it is. We might hold on to it for years at a time, but never look at it, never use it. Oh, but so-and-so gave it to me, or this represents this and that. It's special meaning that we're putting onto it. It's because we're associating what we have and what's meaningful and what's valuable in our life with these past moments. And we're actually afraid. We feel guilt. If I let go of this thing, I'm letting go of this value and this meaning. But the value and the meaning existed in the present moment of exact relationship. The meaning of that crystal was in my relationship with it in the present moment. And that present moment was gone, and that beauty will always be a memory. To let go of the past and live honestly and simply now, there's a threshold of greater freedom and peace when we really recognize all the subtle ways. It's like a real prayerful reflection that I'm just with right now. All the subtle ways in which we tell ourselves to hold on to what was. Because we think if we let go of what was, we'll lose that value. But the value was only ever in present moment relationship. We let go of what was so that present moment relationship can emerge once again in new and fresh and relevant ways to nourish us. So all things in life are like that. And of course, when we die, we take none of this with us, right? So we do let go, whether we want to or not. I think one of the hardest things with Taurus and with Venus in general is letting go, because it's very materialistic. It's very survival focused. We value things and people and experiences. Oh, this feels good. You feel good. I want this to stay the same. I want to keep this. And so we associate value with all of these things that change. So that's, I think, a big part of what this square is reflecting, especially as Jupiter moves into this retrograde phase. It wants to reorient and reprioritize value with where it actually is, with direct experience, with honest and sincere relational living right now. And there are all these stories. I once heard this beautiful story. Muji told this story about, I think, his teacher, who came to his teacher and said, when I was younger, I used to receive these visions from Krishna and Ganesha, and these masters would come to me, and I would have visions, and they would tell me things. But now they don't come to me anymore. Have I lost my way? Am I not as spiritually attuned anymore? And the master said to this disciple, it was helpful for you then. It's not needed now. What a beautiful answer. It was helpful then. It's not needed now. And so we never want to become too attached to the forms in which the help, in which the relationships and the things and the objects and the experiences in our life emerge. Being deeply honest and sincere about how we feel now. Is this alive? Is it real? Is it alive right now? To be really honest about our feeling. I would much rather let go of the past and be free now to experience the next most relevant unfolding experience and revelation for life to emerge and to see one another. Even people that I've known my whole life. I would much rather meet you again right now than hold the value of this relationship in past experience. Even if that means letting go of a whole bunch of ideas of what should be. I would much rather the freedom of realization and discovery and growth than anything else. So these are my reflections for this Venus-Jupiter square. Thank you for watching. Reminder, the chart interpretation course, which is part 2 of my year-long training program, this is for those that already studied in the basics of evolutionary astrology. It begins next week. It's going to be a really deep, beautiful learning environment, learning experience. Get in touch if you want to talk about it. Application is necessary. And I'm going to start sharing this a lot more soon. The first ever Jeffrey Wolf Green Association Evolutionary Astrologers Conference online is happening. This is the first conference that's ever happened since 2012, which was in person. Many of the old-timers of EA, some of the most world-renowned and talented faces of EA, and many fresh new teachers as well will be coming together for this weekend conference in October. So stay tuned for more information on that.